Yeah, good morning. We're going to give you guys all a minute to come in while I get rid of that thingy. That would be annoying and distracting. Okay, so let's see. It's 10:02. We're a few minutes late. We just had to fine-tune the picture angle for optimum stability because it was just like falling all over the place.
Optimum visualization.
Right. Okay, so I have my little handy dandy book because I can't track anything. So Hannaneel just got here. She was in traffic. Hannaneel, Perez, you guys.
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm so glad to be here, and I made it through that traffic. I always forget how Portland's like, get across the bridge and, that's right, I get to view all of Portland while I sit in my car.
From the I-5 corridor. It's the best corridor in town.
For reals. So hello, good morning. I was just telling Jesse, normally I'm watching Morning Oasis in my pajamas, so it's really nice to be fully dressed and awake. And normally
she's like, this is early for me. I'm like, it is for everybody.
This is my day off, so this is my weekend. So normally it's sleep in, sleep till you cannot sleep anymore.
But I'm sorry, I'm just distracted. What is that?
Oh, this is
God.
It's called a tool for evolution, developed by Marcel Vogel. And this is a radiant heart cut, so it helps really focus heart energy. But this is a rhodolite garnet with a little ruby on top.
Oh, it feels really amazing. Oh
yeah, this was a tool I got just earlier this year. One of the things that I've been working on is reparative grounding versus protective grounding.
Such a difference.
I'm
so glad you brought that up. See, she's still in alignment, totally with me. It's awesome.
It's been one of those things that somebody asked me a question the other day about protective grounding.
I need to write that down.
And she said something like, I can't use smoky quartz because it's just too heavy. And I was like, oh, of course it is.
Right.
There's a difference between protective grounding and reparative grounding. Mm-hmm. For those of us who've had issues with trauma, where we have root fractures, we have to repair that root chakra in order to be able to really ground effectively. And yes, there's a time and a place for protective grounding. We want to be able to kind of turn off the world for a little bit. If you're a super sensitive empath like me, turning off the world and having that off switch is really handy. It helps you learn that difference between their stuff and your stuff.
You know, I have to put this out there. If you haven't been following me since Crystal Cocoon days, this is Hannaneel from the Crystal Cocoon.
It is.
And I was just looking, we've now been friends for 2 years now.
Yes.
And even when we're together, we were really growing fast. And then we went apart and then accelerated again.
And then we came back and we're like, you're doing the same stuff I'm doing.
I know. So yeah, it's really amazing. So today, here's what I wanted to do today. My thoughts around today were that we would just do our quick announcements, maybe do 1 or 2 pulls. I don't want to do too many card pulls today because it's rare that I get somebody like this awesome with me in here, and I'm so excited. And I can feel that there's been work building that we're going to do.
Yeah, me too. As
I
was driving a little closer to you, I was like, oh, that is some lovely warm heart energy coming through. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of gooey. I like that.
It's warm cheesecake energy.
With a little bit of caramel sauce.
Oh my God, you totally nailed it. Okay, I don't say the caramel cheesecake because, I don't want to be so gluttonous, but that's exactly what it is.
A little warm caramel sauce on top.
We'll talk more about that later.
Yes, we will.
Yes, we will. Okay, so here's what I wanted to start with. Hannaneel, are you going to be at the psychic fair?
I'm hoping to be. It's normally a work day for me, so I'm having to find coverage for my job in order to do that. I normally work weekends, so.
Okay, well, if she is, you've got to come see her. She does not do a lot of fairs, and that's why I'm all like, please.
Yeah, that's true, I don't.
She doesn't. She works for Celestial Awakenings. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I work for a metaphysical store here in Portland. There's also the flagship store, which is across the river in Vancouver. It's been there for well over 10 years. The Portland store has been here for a little over 2 years. So we are a tool support store. Like, we have rocks and crystals, pendulums,
like this Vogel.
Yeah, like this tool
like
here.
These things aren't messing around. This is crystal that's been cut in order to focus the energy frequency that it already inherently has
These are specialized tools. We're one of the largest carriers on the West Coast of these tools.
When that box comes out, I'm all like, crack, like.
Yeah, they're sacred geometry cuts.
Yeah.
So they really help focalize that energy, and they're really meant to meet you where you're at energetically and give you that push forward into the next level. So if I'm feeling like stuck, or there are specific things I'm working on, Vogel tools are my go-to.
Yeah.
But we sell lots of just tumbled stones. And then the other part of it is we're community-minded.
Yeah.
So everything is about having community. Most people need that like-minded individual in order to spend time with.
Yeah.
Before I met you and a couple of other people here locally, Celestial Awakenings was my home away from home. That was where I came and was like, I can say the words empath, I can say the word intuitive, I can talk about some of the weird things I experienced. And people are like, oh, that's not weird. I'll show you weird.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's true. And you also, so she's also their in-house psychic. So like if you come in, you're all, I want to see, you're a practitioner.
Yeah, I'm a practitioner there. We have a lot of energy healers, oracle card readers, tarot readers. We even have a palmistry, tea leaf reader. But some of us do more, which is like that blend of oracle card reading and energy work.
Yeah,
So,
which is exactly, if you've been at a fair with me, that's what I do, is incorporate energy work. And it was while I knew Hannaneel and our other friends, we were a little group, that was where I first experienced combining crystals with cards and energy work. Remember how we did that?
I remember that.
I think you were my first reading.
Like this needs to go here.
Yeah, and we were doing that, and then we were both focusing energy in as we were opening up the different issues we were seeing in relationship to the cards, and that was really awesome. It's just by playing that we learn and grow, and that's why it's so important to have the tribe and the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I run a group energy session every third Sunday of the month.
I'm going this
So if you want to come, experience, play, use your skills, everyone, I love that group because everyone who comes has something different to bring to the table. Some people see colors, some people feel emotions, some people see animals, ancestors, you name it.
Yeah.
Everyone shows up differently, and it just opens the door to show and let your weirdness shine.
Yeah.
Because nothing in that group is weird.
It's
really
true.
not.
It's true.
So we just kind of come and have fun and play. Have a good time.
That's right. So I'm going to look through some of the comments. My friend Karen Brooks says my friend got a wonderful necklace from the Vancouver store. Karen is going to be one of our practitioners that'll be at the fair. She's this will be her first time presenting in a fair format also. She's going to be doing like shamanic journey with holy Reiki fire and using the rays and just pulling that all of her different gifts that were, various modality oriented now, just the true nature of the root of the gifts pulling together. It's really beautiful when that occurs.
Awesome.
One of our goals for the whole fair, really. And Kristen says, you ladies are amazing. Good morning. Just wanted to check in. So that's another thing. So our fair is really evolving. We're going to have somebody at the door. Kristen is going to be at the door. Nice. She's going to come and experience all the different practitioners through the day so she can help you guys figure out who you want to go to. So all of that's going to be there. Oh my God. And have you ever heard of Amanda Richards?
Name sounds familiar.
She's red-haired, green-eyed, country rock singer, tarot reader, psychic, henna doer at fairs.
Oh, I love henna.
So she's been doing henna at fairs, like big fairs, and she can do a beautiful, intricate design in under 20 minutes. So she's going to be doing mandalas and energetic tuned designs for psychic henna healing. I'm super
That's really rad.
Excited about that.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That's
And she's
awesome.
never done fairs, but she's a country western singer.
Cool.
Isn't that awesome?
I love that. Again, I love, multi-dimensionality, multi-modality.
For sure. Music.
Yeah.
Music is the key.
Totally.
Sound vibration. Okay, so we did have one request for a card pull, and there's others, and over the weeks what I'm going to do is be inviting different people who may or who are going to be there, because we're also going to be doing future fairs. We'll start doing them once a month. So you can expect to start seeing some guests in Morning Oasis over the next few weeks as we prep up to the fair. And then I thought after that we would talk about ancestral stuff, because you do a class on that.
I do.
And she's who I first started to understand guardians, and how guardians can impact us, and how we can be, how it really could just change the whole way the energy of our life approaches us, because they're standing guard, they're out there, and they influence all of that coming in.
Totally.
And she was the one who was like, oh, feels like there's a turned guardian. I'm like, what?
what
What does that even mean? Like, and it was so true. Like, changing that, I've witnessed that work just for myself and others.
Yeah, it's life altering. I was the same way.
Yeah.
I went to see a shaman about it and had my energies shifted, and as a result, it was eye-opening. It was literally night and day different.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was different, and then nothing was different. That amazing, like, shamanic part of it, where, like, everything looks the same, but not really.
Right. Yeah. It's I always view that as it's when one of those filters just lifts away.
Absolutely.
And you're suddenly like, oh, I'm not filtering out that spectrum of color anymore. I can see more vividly.
It's a whole layer shift. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we have one card request pull. Good morning, Jolene. Nice to see you here. So we have one card pull, and that's from Tyrell. And I thought, since you've never really been here before, I do this to Shauna too. I make her pull when she shows up. Hi, and Amanda's here. We were just talking about you, Amanda. Do you know Hannaneel from Celestial Awakenings? I think you've been in there a few times.
Yeah, a lot of people might know me. I might know people, but I'm really bad with names.
I am horrible with names. Faces, I remember.
Yeah, me too.
But names, it's like, no idea.
I love this deck.
Oh,
This is one of my favorite decks.
I almost told you to bring your decks, but I'm like, she's already left by now. That's how
you know what? It was so funny. I asked my decks if they wanted to go, and they're like, no, today's a day off for us. We need some recharge time too. And I was like, well, Jesse will have decks.
Yeah, and these decks always love to, meet new people. These are very social decks.
Yeah, I love this Earth Magic deck by Stephen Farmer. Has lots of really good shamanic earth type energy, which most of us on some level are really familiar with, because we live in this world. And hopefully you're like in tune at some level with the earth.
Right. And I feel like, while you're doing that and picking for Tyrell, you see, it's ancestors.
Ancestors, generations.
Yep, this is all about DNA. Oh my God, you see, you guys, those are the synchronicities that just help us all go, oh, that's real. So when we get told something that's so friggin' far out that we're like, no way. Oh, but remember all those other times?
Right?
Yeah. So I usually just read. Do you want me to read, or do you want to read?
Go for it.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to read the actual description of the card. I'm going to show you guys. You all are so gifted at this. Let's see. So how's a good way? There we go. There you can see it and us. Okay. So here's what it says. You have within you the blood of your ancestors. You're deeply connected to your lineage. The most immediate proof of that being the physical resemblance you have to your mother and father, and perhaps even your grandparents. Yet beyond that, although unknown to your usual senses, you're connected to an ancestry that reaches back through the millennia. This is the time to call upon those ancestors, those who are of your bloodline, as well as those ancient ones who have walked the land that you now walk. In many indigenous cultures, it is believed that the essence of your ancestors inhabits many of the physical aspects of the land. In other words, they are the trees, the water, the air, the animals, the stones, their blood being in the very dirt and sand that you tread upon. Next time you're outside, allow your senses to open up to those ancestors who abide in the physical world. And any time at all, allow your heart to open to those spirits to whom you are related through your heredity, and those to whom you are connected by virtue of the land upon which you live. That's, I really do think, so I'm playing today another binaural beats. It's set at 432 hertz, and this one is for DNA healing and repair and release. So it's kind of like, let's just set the whole mood, get everybody in that climate, that space, and until I get permission, let's just not tell anybody about this music business. I need to contact some people who do this. I need Kyle to make me some music for just this. Anyway, mind thinking. So, for Tyrell, you are just opening that up for us, and it's really asking you to look at your own ancestry. That's where you're going to find a lot of the keys for what it is that you're struggling with right now.
Well, I think that happens a lot. The reason that I do the ancestor class is because, one, my ancestors won't let me not do it. Like, they are pestering me. They're like, you need to go do that thing you do.
Right.
Because this is really their knowledge I'm bringing forward.
Yeah.
This is their wisdom, their truth that I am bringing forward as a channel as part of my own DNA.
Right.
There are a lot of influential energies that happen as a result of your DNA structure, whether that's histories of mental illness, issues within the family of abuse cycles.
Well, and also, let me just put in there, mental illness, it tends to lead to, if you really look at it, the hormone, biochemical.
Absolutely.
So in general, that's going to be how your glandular system works and processes and interacts with, the various hormone levels.
Absolutely.
And that's all going to be genetically programmed.
Right. If you had an ancestor...
Experientially triggered, but genetically programmed.
Absolutely. If you had an ancestor who lived through some severe trauma,
right.
Maybe that was you come from a tribal ancestry, and so there was mass genocide. You're going to be talking about generations of adrenal fatigue.
Right.
Which absolutely goes right into thyroid issues, parathyroid issues, pituitary gland problems, sexual dysfunctions, things like that, because your system runs on an axis. You've got the upward, downward, side to side, and if you have one imbalance, well, it's trying to run a race with a broken leg. You can do it. You can be trudging along really slow, but you're going to be struggling. And so usually when this card comes up, it's meaning you need to look at your ancestral history. Who and where do you come from? And whose wounds are you still carrying?
Right, yeah.
Those energies absolutely have an influential part of how your chemical makeup, your emotional structure, your physical body, and how you mentally process.
Right.
All of those things come right from these guys.
Right, yeah.
And if you're not in touch with them, and in this culture,
We
don't have good ritual for handling death. We don't have good ritual for honoring the ancestors.
Or even coming of age anymore.
Absolutely.
We've lost our sacrament.
We've lost a lot of our rituals. It's all about right now, what can I get? Instant gratification. And there's no honoring, there's no sacredness, there's no reverence. As the description said, the world is made up of our ancestors. The whole ashes to ashes, dust to dust. When this body dies, it returns to the earth.
Yeah.
So we're literally walking on generations of people.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting this horrible ache right here. I'm like, I know, we'll get to it.
Generations of people that we don't honor, we don't revere. It's part of why the sacredness of the earth is so important, because this is our family. This is an extension of who we are. And so when you have these influential energies, it's a paradox. They feel like you, but not you, because they are related to you. So that's where things get a little shaky in Western medicine, because if you show up and you're like, well, I hear voices. They're going to be like,
to the angels?
Yeah, they're going to be like, here's your script. Why don't you take 2 of these and we'll see if we can shut that off for you.
Right, exactly.
But
we'll
maybe
shut it
you're
right down.
supposed to hear voices.
Right.
I hear the voices of my ancestors. They're very loud, and it sometimes feels like a whole stadium of people I'm listening to. And so sometimes, that can be disconcerting until you figure out what is happening with you, what's going on with you, all of those kinds of things. So taking a look and just, doing a meditation with your ancestors, opening that door, just as you do with angels or your guides, because guess what? These are your guides. Just at one point you were a guide for them when you were in a parallel life. These lines all run concurrently. And so right now they're your guides.
Exactly.
And if they're still dealing with influential energy that they didn't deal with in their lifetime, guess what? You are too.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we talk about healing these lines, it becomes a big deal. So the less connected you are to your family lines, the more work you have to do.
Right.
So if you're adopted, if you had a break somewhere in your family line, like on my dad's side, his parents separated from both of their family lines due to belief structures.
Right.
They converted to a different religion than the rest of their family, and so had nothing to do with their family. That told me I had huge issues on my dad's side that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And
your dad also, by the way, just to put this out there, her dad's from Guatemala.
Guatemala, yeah.
So that has a history that's much more current in the as far as genetically and generationally. You know, you're still dealing with things that would just be generational healing, even if the culture hadn't endured the level of trauma that the culture endured. What 200 and some odd 300
and
years
still
ago.
endures.
Still endures.
Yeah.
So it's still all being programmed. And one of the other things about your DNA is that, you know, when you get that feeling when you come next to somebody. For instance, I went to the Jewish New Year celebration, Rosh Hashanah. A friend invited me to it, and at the time, I identified mostly as Italian because I'm half Italian, and then the other half of me is like European mutt, right, with like a bit of Cherokee thrown in, I think like a 16th or something. You know, otherwise it's all over Europe, and so I identified mostly as Italian. And I'm sitting in this group, and it was the strangest feeling. I felt like I was in family. And then later, when I was first training with my former teacher, the first time she tuned into my guides, and the angel that was talking to me, she was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that you're Jewish." And I said, "No, I'm not Jewish." And she goes, "Well, your guides are, and your lineage is." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then she says, "Well, your mother's mother's mother was German Jew." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, she was. Oh." And that's the lineage, and it's very strong, and because culturally it's so strong, it gets programmed in. Yeah. So then, when I first met Hannaneel, we met at Woody's Tacos for lunch.
Love Woody's.
So good. And we took our tacos and we sat at this table in the center of this like mezzanine area. And as soon as we started talking, she was like, "Oh, from the lost tribe, the 13 lost tribes of Israel." Yeah. And it was like, both of our heads were turned. Yeah. We were tapped. It was this energetic download, like neither of us had ever.
Like, "Oh, my leg!"
Right. It was
my leg hurts.
I know, my leg was cramping up because I hadn't yet developed the level of grounding in order to handle that kind of energy. And it literally is like being struck by a bolt of lightning when you get one of those kind of downloads. And we stayed in that way for long enough for the people around us to finish eating. And by that point, they're kind of looking at us because we're both like, you know, and not talking. What's going on over there? And then I just remember that was one of the most powerful meetings and conversations with an individual that I had ever had up till that point. And so when our lineage comes together, so clearly we've got some lineage
crossed, yeah.
When it activates, so that DNA has all these different layers that we don't even know how to measure. There's 16 different levels of the DNA strands in different forms of appearance, essentially, not like physical CTGAs, but protein strands, but actual etheric as well as energetic and mental and emotional and interdimensional, and all of these strands that operate on all of those different levels that activate just by coming into proximity, which is the whole point of the tribe, guys. I'm just going to throw that out there. I keep pushing this tribe because I feel like that's how we're going to really heal.
Absolutely. Well, you know, like I said, we are so disconnected in this culture. Right. The veil of separation, the things that keep us from each other. As most of you know, here in Portland, we've been dealing with that specifically, this idea of separation and racial separation, that somehow my skin tone or who my lineage is separates me from other people. Right. And as somebody like, my mother is Eastern European mutt too, like we don't really know where that lineage comes from, like England,
so much in there.
Yeah, just, you know, but I know my father's lineage really well, and so the mix of these two puts me in a really weird position, particularly in an area like Portland where people are more used to seeing Mexican type faces.
Right.
My ancestry, my grandmother is a full-blooded Kachikal Indian. And so most people don't recognize that face structure, that lineage, any of those things. So I can pass here, and people are like, oh, she Hawaiian. And I'm like, yeah, give me a Mai Tai. But that's just it, you know.
Right.
And it's only been this year, you know, I have a lot of gratitude for our current president, because I have learned this year I am not white. Like, really not white.
Oh, I love
and I have absolute gratitude for that, because I have been so jumping into my indigenous roots. My grandmother, like, she came through at a time when I really needed her to show up for me and showing me the strength of who she was. I mean, my grandmother was an indigenous Indian in the Central Highlands of Guatemala.
Wow.
The women who still live there are still subjugated. They're not taught Spanish. They're not educated. And so for her to, one, have an education, two, learn a different language, and three, have children who then went to college. And
that's a huge shift in generation.
Huge shift.
Information.
And then my dad moved here to the States in 72 with my mom. And so culturally, you know, we got pulled right out of a culture and implanted into another one.
Right.
And so,
and that's just like, you have to think of it like a plant as well. Plants, they have a whole different flavor, the fruit that's produced depending upon where it's grown. We know this for wine, we know this for all sorts of, you know, coffee and foods, but this is true of people too. Absolutely. And so, you know, coming into my own heritage and fully embracing that this year probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the president and the time and all of that. So again, I hold a lot of space for this, and I also have a lot of gratitude because I have been confronted with my own issues, my own tribal grief, my own tribal anger that I'm still carrying, I'm still holding, wondering, where does all this anger come from? Why am I so mad? Well, it's stored.
It's all in the DNA. And so when I allow it to come out, I give it what I call space and grace. The space to feel all that you feel, and the grace to not judge it as right or wrong, or any, you know, these judgments we give them. And so that really helps when working through this ancestral history. So if you come from you know, and you can even deal with, you know, white culture, sometimes there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes through.
Definitely.
You know,
because our parents, and think of like, I remember learning that it takes 3 generations to really heal a wound within a line, and that's with 3 generations focused on doing so in a row. And oftentimes we'll have it like our parents go so overboard on some way of, I'm not going to be like this, I'm not going to be like that family. And so they completely reject. And then the kids are all like, well, what's wrong with the family? I want my family. You're crazy. And so there's a lot of that happens also, especially in white culture.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have that same level of commitment to tribalism. That tribe is the family. We are really kind of like, I don't know, this is my immediate family. This is me and my kids. And you're not a part of that. And so that separation also makes it much more difficult for us to heal this ancestral stuff that we're carrying. And it impacts us, and it impacts everyone in our lives.
Absolutely. Impacts relationships.
For sure.
Not just with other people, but the relationship you have with you.
Exactly.
I had a turned guardian on my mother's side, which is interesting. I've talked a lot about my dad's side, but my mom's side is where a lot of the abuse, violence, severe mental breaks,
substance abuse,
addictions, mental abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual violence, all of that came from my mom's side. And so I used to have this voice that I would hear that was it was a bully, really. It would constantly remind me of all the things I had done wrong. How I was so not perfect. It could never be perfect. I was not divine.
You're a critical parent.
Yeah, you know, the words like charlatan, lots of self-doubt. Lots of...
Don't want to be that lady.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, you're a fraud.
Right.
So this voice would tell me a lot of
especially
things.
when you start stepping into professionally. When you start charging money to do this or to do your work, all of us go through this where you feel like you have to prove your worth, prove what you're capable of doing, and you also have to prove your humility and prove that you're qualified. And I mean, there's all this stuff you have to do that you can't really just step into your authenticity. It's such a challenge. And also, that's generationally linked as well.
Absolutely. Stepping into your authentic who you are, you're going to hit some roadblocks, because how else do you discern the truth of what that is, your authentic nature, without confronting it?
Right.
Without having it be challenged. Yeah. And so this voice was constantly at me. It was going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never shut up. And I was thinking, like, I've done all this work on self-love. I've done all this work on self-worth. Why can I not love myself?
Yeah.
And I started doing some research on generational issues. Are curses real?
Yeah.
Does generational curse exist? And there wasn't a lot of information out there, but I did find...
and there's not a lot of information that's not linked into some sort of archaic belief system that's no longer applicable. Really.
True enough.
And so it becomes inaccessible. You're like, I'm sorry, I just can't read this crap.
Right, like you can't even get to the meat of it.
Yeah.
And I found a shaman who was in Norway, of all places, and and this is all he does. Yeah. But he's a Norwegian shaman who trained in the Amazon, so he has a lot of Amazonian
that's great,
medicine.
It's bringing these two different lineages and cultures together.
And the voice was so loud, and it was like, good luck with that. Never gonna happen. You shouldn't do this. Why are you spending money that you don't have? Yada, all of the things just really at me. And it was Christmas Eve, like 4 or 5 years ago. And I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to sit here and write this email. And it was just loud. So I thought, okay, I'll just wait. I'll go, I'm hungry, I'll go eat something. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm doing what I always do, which is eating avocados. Peeling it, and I did the one thing I never did, which is hold the avocado in my hand as I'm trying to take the pit out, just like this. And I'm loud, and I stab myself in the hand. Goes right through the avocado, right underneath the pit. I still have the scar right there. And I realized I stopped, and it didn't bleed, but I'm standing there and I have this huge cut in my hand. I'm holding this avocado.
And it is, you can see the scar. It's hard to see from there.
Yeah, it's like right there. It's like
that's like the width of the full blade of the knife.
Yeah, it went all the way in. And I was like, I have to stop hurting myself.
Yeah.
I have to stop hurting myself unintentionally.
Yeah.
That was the real key for me, that I had been doing a lot of things to self-sabotage. And some of this was not me. Yeah. I didn't want to sabotage myself. I didn't want to hurt myself. But I couldn't stop the energy from being present with me and influencing my decisions.
Yeah.
So that's when I sent off that email. And when he wrote back, yes, you have curses. So much truth for me. And that's where I realized, okay, this isn't just in my head. This isn't just me. This is something very real. Yeah. And after he cleared those lines, I remember waking up the next day, that voice was gone. I've never heard it again. Now I know when I hear that voice of doubt, that's really me.
Yeah.
And I'm working through my own issues.
Exactly.
It's not an influential energy that sounds like me.
And it feels different.
It does feel different.
It doesn't have that soul crushing,
like
life essence force being removed from you as it talks.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have the weight that it had once.
So it took probably about a year to get my full energy back, because it really depletes you. It pulls energy from you. Yeah. Chronic fatigue, insomnia, even dreaming about your ancestors. A lot of people will say, I see my ancestors sitting at the doorway of my bedroom. That's really common.
Yeah.
The feeling of...
Shauna, that's going on in your house, by the way.
3 steps forward, 2 back.
Exactly.
Every 3 steps, I have to take 2 back. It's this constant push-pull energy.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that too, because people often, they feel like, I did this work, and then what is it coming up again? Why is it coming up again? But it is because, first of all, it's layer upon layer, and how those layers all integrate and how they work together and what pulls out, what's tucked behind something. When you are going to take a soup, for instance, and you make a stock, you don't just run it through one big colander and then be good. You know, depending on how pure and clean you want that water to be, that broth, you use sieves, different levels of sieves. The same is true when we're mining, when we're going for the gold. So you have to recognize that it's going to be a process of work and working through it. And so many people get discouraged and feel like when they take those steps back, like, I'm defeated now. It's done. It was all
or that it was worthless. Right.
It was just a
crop. It was for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, that's sometimes like what I tell people is you think of yourself like a spiral.
Yes.
A really, really tightly wound spiral. So yeah, those lines sometimes look really close together, but it's a whole different layer.
Yeah.
When you've completely done a full shift and you're now back and people are saying, oh, I'm back where I started.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
Because you have tools, you have support, you have new coping mechanisms, new perspectives. Everything is different for you. So this is one more layer on the same wound.
Right.
And anybody who tells you, oh, well, I've done that work, I'm done, Jesse, I've healed, my root is totally
That's
done.
Your ego. That's not my ego.
Again, when you use the words like absolutes, they create an absolute. Never, always, I'm done. I don't ever have to do this again. Likely something's going to come up and be right in your face and be like, oh yeah, really?
Right.
You're done? There's always some new layer.
And it's always to help you also, I think, to confirm for you, this is what it used to be like. Remember? You would have jumped at this once. This would have been that whole, that would have been the trigger that blasted out your whole side of your ship, right? Once upon a time. But now it comes along and you're like, oh, what a cute little iceberg. It's bigger under the surface. We're going to go around it. And you know how to navigate your life so much better that way.
Yeah. Well, and just sit with those kinds of things.
Yes.
You know, whether it's meditation or guidance or tapping into a show like Morning Oasis, where you can usually synchronistically receive information like this guy. You know, that's exactly the kind of thing that happens. The universe is always saying yes to you, constantly saying yes. It's what are you asking for?
Exactly.
What have you put forward that the universe is going, yes, 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 yes. And if it's, I can't, I won't, I don't know how to, then the universe, yes, you're right, you don't know how to.
Yeah, exactly.
It will reinforce to you the truth of what you think.
Right.
And so things like this where you can get that mirror reflected back to you. Oh, okay, this is really what I'm holding. This is really what's happening. Yeah. It's not that I've stepped backwards, it's I'm actually stepping forward. And it feels similarly, but things are different.
Right, yeah, for sure. I was just actually talking about this with somebody on the phone last night. And, you know, she's very isolated. She's totally withdrawn. Has a hard time with trust, has a hard time expressing how much love she has in her heart because she's afraid. She's afraid of vulnerability, afraid of transparency, you know. And I think that in this field and in this kind of a tribe, you're going to have a lot of us struggling with that. And I think, you know, all of us, I can't think of anyone I've talked to that doesn't have to take a day or two to just completely remove from the external and come internal and just recharge, just like your cards had to take a day off. We have to make sure we're doing that self-care while we're doing this kind of work especially. So if you suddenly feel like your energy is crashing, you need to call and cancel the appointments and cancel the schedule so that you can really come in. But why I went down that road is because I think we have to recognize that not all of the people are a part of this tribe. So it's coming to the right groups of people. And you mentioned Morning Oasis. This is one avenue. Celestial Awakenings is another avenue. And finding your local community as well as your international community, because we are spread far and wide. So when somebody is totally isolated away like that, and she's isolated to the point where she's starting to have physiological shutdowns of systems, right? Would you relate that to an ancestral thing?
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be in a place where I would want to look first. Because why, again, that pulling away, again, we withdraw when we don't feel safe. Where does that lack of safety come from? Usually the root. How are you anchored here? Where are you rooted? And a lot of us who have generational issues have generations of fractures in that root. So if you can't connect because of safety and vulnerability, that has a lot to do with that root chakra. So again, the difference between protective grounding and reparative grounding, helping that root to really flourish, to become whole again. There's lots of things like this guy and this little rhodolite garnet. The reason I really love this tool and the reason I picked it, or actually rather it picked me, it showed up and was like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
I was like,
they do,
ooh.
man. When they show up, you're like, huh, okay, how am I going to afford this?
Right. Well, we do layaway. But the reason I like this tool is because it helps link crown, heart, and root together. Garnet is a really good tool for doing that. And then this specific tool also has ruby in it. So it's going to really invigorate that root energy, connecting it to heart. Also very protective, but not protective in the same density kind of ways like hematite, black tourmaline,
Those are
smoky quartz.
dense.
They're very dense.
And they really pull you down.
And they will shift your awareness in the fact, like when I use smoky quartz, when I need that turn off day, smoky quartz is my go-to because it is a shield. So the information coming in doesn't come in the way it used to. But also the information going out, it's the same way.
Yeah.
So coming in or going out, there's a shield here.
Right.
So my empathic ability is then changed. So my perception is changed. Sometimes I need that to turn that off switch so I can be human again. I don't have to be the intuitive, the empath, the whatever label I'm ascribing to. But doing that reparative, red calcite has also been a go-to lately because it really works on that fight or flight instinct that comes from the root chakra. When I get triggered and my senses, oh no, something's wrong here. I'm feeling fear. Oh no, I have to do something with this fear. Fear is an emotion. Is there danger present? There is no danger. Okay, so I triggered something that probably has more to do with my ancestors. If there isn't any danger present, that's my overactive hypothalamus that is now triggering and going off. And so my need to withdraw, my need to isolate, my need to go away. And I completely understand that as somebody who locked herself away in her house for a year. Way back. I was like, no, I don't like people. People are mean. I feel everybody's judgments.
I think all of us, I think everyone who's listening here has had at least a year of that, if not more. More.
I mean, I didn't come into awareness that I was an empath until about 5 years ago. And so everything prior to that was, this is all my stuff.
And it was all mental health disorders.
Absolutely. Was severe depression, severe anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, agoraphobia, all of these things. But what I was really dealing with was history, generational lines where a lot of women in my life had violence done to them and had never dealt with it. In my family, we don't talk about those things. And if we do, it's late at night and just be doing like this. That kind of thing. But that's not really talking about it.
No, it's not clearing anything out.
Exactly.
Because you're creating a protective space around you and that person. And once again, it's keeping everything in. You know, like, for instance, what this kind of brings to mind is, you know, the amniotic sac when there's a baby in the womb, right? It's not a steel-bound sac. It's always weeping off the amniotic fluid as it's bringing in new, fresh fluid. It's a cleansing process. I had no idea that you get a leaky vagina when you get pregnant. It was disgusting. I'm just going to throw that out there. Pregnant women keep way too much to themselves, so you just get all this crap.
It's true. It's like the things they don't tell you.
It's awful. So the process, we have to be a permeable layer if we ever want to release anything. And you can't be permeable if you're not willing to let something come in too. The other thing I want to say is Hannaneel is an excellent example of what it is to be so sensitive that you are literally diagnosed as crazy, like I was as well. You know, I mean, we're going to use a loose term, but pretty much you're 2 steps shy of the farm, right?
Yeah.
So, and really it being about not understanding her gifts and understanding and tapping in. And by the way, Hannaneel's course was very similar. She didn't just like commit into one modality or one program. She explored everything she could get her hands on. And as a result, has a broad base from which she pulls while she's doing her work. And so many of us feel bad because we can't complete a program or get a certificate or get the funding to join it, or
Totally.
and it's a perfect example of the commitment is I am always willing to look here and understand here and see that here is a reflection for me to see here better. And that's one of the things that really drew us together and why we've stayed in connection as we've both been growing so much in our own independent ways. And I love that about you, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, that was a hard road.
Hard road.
Because everything that I had been taught about how you define yourself as professional.
Right.
Which means certificates on the wall. I graduated.
Right. I have this little piece of paper that proves I can be exactly who you want me to be.
Right. I have the certifications. I have the knowledge. Yeah. And how do you trust somebody who's not received those certifications?
Right.
Well, my guides wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't
Every
let me
single
either.
time I tried to sign up for Reiki, they were like, you don't do Reiki.
Yeah.
You don't do Reiki. And I was like, but I want to do Reiki.
But that makes it so I can show up.
But I'll have a certificate that says my name on it and I'm a master. And they're like, like, guess what? The car will break down. You'll get a flat tire.
Someone will hit you.
Exactly. You don't do that.
Yeah.
And so just recognition, you know, that sort of cliched saying everything you need is inside of you is really true.
Yeah.
The remembering of who I am has been more potent and more powerful and more in that professional line of how I show up than any certificate course.
Yeah.
Because I have experience in what I'm bringing through.
Right.
I have to heal myself first and work through those lines of my own experience before I can go, here, Jessie, here's what I have to offer you.
Yeah.
And now let me tell you about my experience.
Yeah. And I also think that what happens when we do that first, really commit to doing that self-work and that self-engagement and that self-exploration, when we have to also remember when we go out and start doing it professionally, we're still being worked on.
Absolutely.
Every single person who shows up across from me for a session, shows up for signing up for the class, shows up for the table, whatever it may be, they are actually there in order to teach me about myself in another layer.
Totally.
And that's why, you know, in the raw consciousness, they're always saying it's never teaching or learning. It's learning, teaching, or teaching, learning, right? And you're always doing both things. So
absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I think when you undergo the certification classes, what happens is they tell you to turn that off. And that you're not supposed to show up as you in the session. You're supposed to only be this Reiki master, which means this set of rules, that's what you're allowed to use. In other words, you can't call this Reiki whatever practice it is that you're doing because you're no longer showing up in that. And it's very much so a limiter. So if you're finding that you're one of those people that can't do it that way, then you're really not supposed to. And you're never going to find who you are until you go internal and really get into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own unique set of gifts.
Yeah.
And if you try to take those gifts and put them in a little tiny box, guess what? They will bust out.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to be in that little defined, oh, you have a nice label here.
Right.
You know, they're going to do their thing. And
Yeah.
the more that you embody that and you allow that authenticity to just flow through you. My whole last session yesterday, as soon as he walked in the room, I was like, oh, this is really about both of us.
Yeah.
This is going to be deep shifting for both of us.
Yeah. And that's the most powerful healing, actually.
Totally.
Yeah, because when you're pulling your stuff up and you're willing to be vulnerable and transparent about what you're holding and what's coming up for you, it serves as a deeper illustration because the other person then goes, oh my God, I'm totally dealing with the exact same thing, different set of circumstances, but the exact same thing.
We totally were.
Yeah, and then that makes it resonate. If you even just think of it from just a biophysical example, you're producing the hormones that trigger these neural responses, which trigger her hormones to trigger, you're tripping each other's hormones to bring up the vibrational ability to pull that more out of the surface. It's those vibrations that shake loose all the crap that's stored inside, and it's that crap that shows up in terms of disease and illness and just dysfunctions of whatever sort. So, on that note, I feel like what we're going to be doing is some ancestral healing. And do you want to lead it? Because I always have to lead it, and I'm sure they would love it if you led, and I'll just hold some space for you. Or I'm putting her on the spot because we didn't even talk about this.
Well, I would like to co-create this with you.
All right, fine.
I would.
All right, okay.
First, there are some things on here I want to make sure that we...
Yeah, so we've had a lot of different responses. It's hard to read them. They're mostly up here. So let's see. Evan's here. Hi, Evan. Let's see. Karen says, I've been able to clear ancestral lines that now our lineage isn't stuck in the reincarnation imprisonment, and we're now free to choose incarnate as they choose.
Yeah.
No certification, natural gifts. Session work for that exact reason. Yes, Shauna, exactly. Shauna said hello, by the way back.
We will hang out, I promise. I'm going to come camp out in your backyard.
I know. I can't wait for that, by the way.
I know, me too.
So
actually,
awesome.
Evan and I were talking about it last night.
So cool. And it seems like it's going to be just a powerhouse of people. Like, it's going to be cool.
Again, you can't plan those kinds of things. They just sort of manifest.
Blossom and evolve and
Yes.
just show up. Alex from SoCal is going to be there too.
Oh, really?
Yes, with her son.
Yay!
Jojo.
Oh, that would be awesome.
They're going to be up staying with me for the weekend, that whole weekend.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
We
So excited.
Again, these people... one of the things I love about Facebook is meeting people from Facebook that we may have interacted. Like, somebody came to the store this weekend and she looked at me and I looked at her and we were like, we know each other, don't we? And I'm like, yeah, we're Facebook friends. Oh, okay. And then we had this whole 3-hour conversation and it was beautiful. I love that.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. I showed up at a barbecue and the same thing happened. It was like my old company's boss's barbecue. They do a family barbecue every year, and I hadn't been there in 4 or 5 years, but they still invited me. So I was in the neighborhood and I stopped by and I had 3 different people come up to me and they're like, oh, you're Jessie Duchar. Can we talk? Do you have cards? And so suddenly I have this ring of people around me, and one of my old coworkers comes up and he's like, what is this? What's going on over here? Jessie, is this the Jessie show? And I'm like, I was so embarrassed.
Yes, this is the Jessie show. It's all about me.
Oh my God, I was so embarrassed. It was really embarrassing. Anyway, I just shake that okay, so let's go ahead and just everybody get started sitting comfortably. I can feel already that as we've been talking about all of this, and as this music has been playing, we're all quite connected, quite grounded. It does not feel like we need to do that at all. But let's just do a quick coming into the vessel, really just breathing in, making sure you're moving the body, opening up that chest cavity, straightening up the spine, just really getting into the body. And I'm kind of getting this sense of using that golden sieve that we've been using lately, just as a clearing to get started and to bring you fully in check with the body. So imagine that you're standing on a great big golden sieve, right? Like a little filtering screen. And it's just coming up through your feet, up through your legs. It's just so graceful and gentle, just releasing all that is ready to go, just from this conversation and awareness and understanding you've gained, the space you've created already as you're thinking of, oh, they're going to work on this, I want to work on that, and this and that. Just releasing already, because just awareness, just becoming into the focus at all releases so much on its own. Bringing it up through the hips and that abdomen space, up through that chest and heart space, up through the shoulders, oh, that felt good, and neck, up up through the jaw, this whole speaking space, right? We've got a lot of crap stored in the what can I say, what can't I say, oh, I don't want to hear that, ugh, I don't want to say that, right? All of that, just let it cleanse, coming up, all the way up through the head and the crown, this visual space, all the way you see and interpret things as you release it up through the crown, and just send it up to Source with all that information. So Source just understands what that was from your perspective. Think of it like a reconnaissance report in Project Earth. Mission details log.
Awesome.
Whatever works for you, all these different analogies. All right, so I feel like, what do you feel like we should go to next?
Well, usually, in order to connect with your ancestors, as long as you're in a nice grounded space, you usually like to create a doorway somewhere in a sacred space in your own mind. Whatever that looks like for you. It's just a doorway that allows you to connect really easily with your ancestors. It's a doorway that you can come to at any time you need to connect with them. Usually you can pick a generational side, whether that's mom's side or dad's side. It feels like a lot of mom energy coming through really clearly for me. Mm-hmm. So whatever that is for you, just build that doorway. It could be as ornate or as simple as you need it to be. And just know that that's just a doorway, an access point to connecting with the ancestors. They're always going to be with you, but when we come to them, this is always with gratitude, sacred reverence, and humility. Because again, these are people who are guiding us, who are helping us to embody our authenticity in most potent and powerful ways. So allow yourself to just build that doorway, and when you're ready, knock on the door. And just allow the door to open. And sometimes people want to, or have expectations of seeing a person. This could be an object. This is an energy of your ancestral lines. So it can look like anything.
Some people even will see like a sphere of light.
Yeah, they'll see colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of colors out there right now.
Yeah, so it can be anything. It doesn't have to necessarily embody this physical earthly form. So it can be anything that just helps you to connect in that way. And usually when we do this exercise, I usually say that there's a box somewhere else in your sacred space. And this box contains a gift for your ancestor. And your ancestor already has a gift for you prepared and ready.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so when you
I already see my box.
And so when you find your box, open it, and in there is a gift for your ancestor. And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily an object. It could be colors. It could be maybe even just an emotional energy that you want to gift to them. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's safety. Maybe it's vulnerability. It could be anything. And so once you locate your box, you can open it and find that gift. And as your ancestor's waiting for you there at the doorway, you can just easily pick up the gift, walk to the doorway, and when you're ready, exchange gifts with your ancestors.
Okay, can I say what I got?
Yeah.
Okay, so I in my box, when I opened my box, there was my genie lamp.
Oh, see, I love, people come up with the most amazing things in their boxes. I love it.
So I gave my genie to my ancestors.
Yay.
And they gave me a white lotus.
Oh, beautiful.
I don't even know exactly what the white lotus is, but it feels really good.
It feels like pure love.
Yeah,
That's what it feels
really,
like.
Oh,
Yeah.
just opening.
Yeah. And when we connect with them, again, it's such a revelation of our connection with them.
Such head tingles.
Yeah, it's easy to connect. It's just something that we're not taught to do.
Right.
And so one of the last things that we do is forgiveness. So again, when we connect with the ancestors, it's always with humbled gratitude and sacred reverence. We thank them for their life, for their knowledge, for their experience, their wisdom, everything that they've brought forward so that you and I can be here today. Without them, we would not exist. That is powerful. That our life is really contingent on the fact that they loved and they showed up and they continue to show up for the duration of their life. And so when we work with them, offering a gift and offering forgiveness, we thank them. We offer forgiveness for any harm that was caused to them by us in their lifetime, any parallel lives, any time that we were together. And then we also receive forgiveness from them for any harm that they have caused us in this lifetime or any parallel life. Ooh. Oh, wow. Something as simple as saying, I forgive you and I accept forgiveness. I'm already getting body chills everywhere, all up my legs. And that usually, again, you start what I call the unraveling process. You start unraveling those lines. Forgiveness and compassion go a long, long way.
When you couple it with gratitude.
Exactly. These are potent energies that create a revelation and unwinding some of the traumas, allowing the truth to come through, allowing love to come through. And we just allow that to process as part of working with our ancestors. I also usually recommend that somewhere in your home you build some kind of altar. Maybe you already have an altar set up. Just having a place of reverence. I don't normally suggest you put pictures because that defines one person in the ancestral line. I usually prefer objects. Maybe that was something that was gifted to you. For me, I have a Wolverine pelt from one of my grandmothers. I have woven tablecloths from my aunts from Guatemala. I have my grandfather's pocket watch. I have these sacred objects that are still imbued with their energy. And while in this physical life, they may not have been the kindest, the most generous, the most forgiving, the most compassionate people, now their energy has shifted. They understand in greater detail all of the things that they were meant to do here and why they're still working with us on guidance so that we can shed some of these layers, that we don't have to live their same experience. We already have their knowledge. We already have their experience. So let's do something different with our lives. Let's not get stuck in that rut where we're constantly hitting the same blocks.
That reminds me, my grandfather recently has been showing up as I've been trying to deal with just my perceptions and beliefs about what men are and what men will do to me in a relationship or how they will treat me. And my grandfather doing this kind of work with his energy, and I know it's him because I can smell Coors beer and cigarettes, Benson and Hedges cigarettes. So I know it's him, you know. It's by me having that process, because he and I hated each other when I hated him, I should say. I don't know exactly, well, I do now, but he hated himself, right? So he didn't hate anybody other than himself, really, and had no idea how to stop hating himself. And in his life, everything he did was just to try to quiet the sound of the hatred, that critical voice. And so in this process of kind of unraveling and opening myself up to him, he ended up showing me how much guilt and shame he still was holding as a result of seeing how from him, the generations, all my aunts and my cousins and my uncles, how that impacted all these relationships of all these different people to now great-grandchildren being born, still being impacted by what was stemming from his own just self-hatred. And going through the process of forgiving him allowed me to receive how he actually felt for me. And that has really shifted even the dynamic in my marriage, where it was a critical component of during this winter of opening that up, where even when my husband and I are in conflict, neither one of us has the desire to hurt the other one anymore. It may happen, it's not like it doesn't happen, but there's no desire to do the hurt. There's just this desire to be understood. And that's like, to me, the next layer of that, and that's what's coming up for me right now as I feel his energy come in just so strongly. So thank you. That was awesome. That was awesome. And I think the other piece is you can always your door can open again and again.
Absolutely.
There's many different ancestors that are showing up for me right now.
Absolutely. I know for my own work, I worked a lot in the last few years on what I call tier 1 and tier 2. That's mom and dad, grandma and grandpa.
Oh, that's a great way of looking at it.
And then everything above that is tier 2. So we start working on grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and then going on beyond that. So I really worked a lot on tier 1, which was my relationships with my mom and my dad, and then their relationships with their mothers and their fathers. And my mother was adopted at 16, so I have 2 lines on that side. Right. With her birth family and then her adopted family, which again is another indication of generational issues when there is a break in that line. But then those family lines, what do you know, they really mirrored each other. While one was more about addiction and substance abuse and mental abuse, the other line was really more about emotional and spiritual violence. So again, there were things that we needed to learn about those lines and offering forgiveness. My grandparents were never the cuddly, come sit on my lap, I will make you chocolate chip cookies. It was mostly stop touching the dog and stay away from my stuff.
Mine was shut the fuck up, Motormouth, go get me a beer.
Yeah, a lot of that. And of course, a lot of, I am smoking.
A lot of smoking.
A lot of substance abuse. A lot of self-sabotage. So really working through those lines and forgiving. And what I tell people is that you're not going to generally see some kind of miraculous shift in your family. What you will see is a miraculous shift in your own perception of your family. That the things that used to trigger you, that go get me a beer, that might have caused a trigger at one point, and now, oh, guess what? I'm trigger free here. This no longer is a sticking point for me. So you might find that your perception of your family lines, your perception of those issues is drastically altered. Forgiveness creates a lot of mercy, a lot of grace, a lot of compassion, and a lot of love. And those things are really powerful. And if you can give them to people who don't deserve them, then why are you holding out on you? If those things required us to deserve or worthiness, there isn't a single person on the planet who would qualify. I don't know anybody who is that perfect. And so when we give those to other people, especially when we've had hardships with them, when they've taught us these tough lessons, and then guess what? It's automatic reciprocation. It automatically comes right back to you, and you get filled with compassion. You get filled with love. You get filled with forgiveness. So these lines where it's a lot of self-hate, generally. It's a lot of self-hate, self-sabotage, death wishes, things like that. And so this really alleviates a lot of that need for substance abuse, cigarette smoking, which is often death wish oriented, those kinds of things. And so sometimes people will have a rekindling of relationships with their family, and sometimes they'll notice, like, I'm no longer bothered by their toxicity. I allow my family to be there.
Say that because when I think back of when I was a smoker, because I used to smoke cigarettes, and it was definitely during the time where I would also have these periods where I'd be driving and I'd be like, oh, I could just go straight right now. It'd be so easy to just go straight right now.
I totally had that too.
I don't have to turn. I just don't have to turn, and then it's all done, and then I don't have to do this anymore. And it certainly wasn't like doing attempts at suicide, but it was this constant, just while driving, that was a constant flow in my mind. And so I think that's when I quit smoking, was when I left my partner, and I was like, it's not worth this. If this is not the rest of my life, this is not it. It's either done or there's something else that I can go live and do, because this person is dying right here, right now, the one who wants to. Now I'm free to go do something different, and that was really when I quit smoking cigarettes. And I have never had the pull to go back to cigarettes again. Now tobacco, just straight tobacco, fresh, whole, natural tobacco, I occasionally do feel a calling to that, and that feels ancestral.
Right, that's more tribal oriented. Again, the sharing of tobacco was a sacred
offering.
Exactly, it was a sacred pact, was an opening, a reverence. We were going to share this plant medicine,
communication,
right?
usually.
Clearing the way between us, those kinds of things. Smoking, smudging, those kinds of things. Again, a lot of tribal like my tribe, the Kachikels, do deep smudging. So some of my first shamanic work was the first time I ever smelled black copal.
I haven't even smelled that.
It smells completely different than white copal, which is the more traditionally found copal that's used, but my ancestors used black copal. The very first time I smelled it, I got triggered and went into a shamanic trance, because that is what my people do. So working with these lines helped to explain some of my experiences, like why did that happen? Well, it happened because it's in my blood, it's in my ancestry. And so now, even now, when I'm working with somebody having smudge, having scent, I literally go into that vibrational frequency and I'm able to shift and do things that the plant medicine helps me to do, because that's the easiest form of things showing up for me.
Yeah. And it makes sense too to cut us off from our ancestry to take something like tobacco and turn it into a death stick.
Poison.
You know.
Right. Totally. Again, it's just another way of shifting that separation, the division. You know, you want to use tobacco, great, here you go, and we'll load it with all kinds of artificial products and things that are more damaging to the body.
And by doing the healing work of really accepting the self and coming into connection with the self, you can then open up and release the triggers, right? So some people think if I add tobacco to, let's say if I'm out and it's a joint to cigarette, you know, and add some tobacco, and that's this space for this group. I usually, if I'm ever going to do it, it's usually in something like that. And they're like, aren't you worried you're going to start smoking cigarettes again? I'm like, no, this is a completely different thing, what we're doing here. This isn't about getting high. This isn't about getting satisfied. This isn't about needing my nick fix. This is a ceremony, and it's an opening, and we're coming in together to talk in a different way using this plant energies. So it changes it when you do that work. That's just another example of how you can shift things.
Absolutely.
In that way.
Cacao was another one.
Oh,
My people use cacao, dark, bitter chocolate, high contents of that. And it is an ecstatic experience. It creates a level of euphoria. We can now commercially buy chocolate, but using it in ceremony and using it as an ecstatic experience to connect with the plant, to connect back to source, and again, find your connection there. It's a whole different type of ceremony. It's not like, oh, I got this bar at New Seasons, and isn't it delicious? It's
funny. A friend of mine, actually, Mariah, who I can't wait for you to meet, she wants to put together a cacao ceremony, and she spent a lot of time in South America, and they have family who have a farm down there that has just cacao growing all over the place. Yeah, and it's just straight up cacao.
Yeah. Again, when you get the real, and there's actually a store here in Portland called Cacao.
Oh, far out.
Where you can get really high quality, organic, fair trade cacao to do ceremonial ritual stuff. And it has been, again, farmed, processed, all of these things. You can also go there and buy like this just really rich hot chocolate. So if you're in Portland, I do recommend it because it's just that good.
Yeah.
But again, these substances that we use that feel familiar to us, they come to us with familiarity already built into our system. So again, what you are drawn to, investigate your roots. Not many of us know beyond our grandparents. We don't know the tiers, whereas in generations before, everyone lived in the same house. Everyone shared the community. Everybody took care of their ancestors. Here, we shove them into homes and like, go live out the rest of your golden years without us. It's cool.
Yeah.
We pay
Someone
people
else
to take care of
wipe
you.
your butt.
Yeah, we pay people to take care of you.
Yeah.
And again, instead of revering, I know I'm sure you've probably seen some of like the Facebook posts about where like in Norway and Sweden, Denmark, where they are building college students dormitories in with assisted living, so that there is a generational connection or childcare, early childcare
in a lot of that.
With assisted living. So you get younger generations with older generations.
In fact, my son's school, they every year, I forget if it's in 3rd or 4th grade, it's the 5th grade musical. They always go and perform it at the assisted living center that's just down the road from it for them, so that they have this interaction. Service to elders. And I remember my son used to be like, why do they smell so weird? I'm like, have you stepped in your room?
Exactly. Takes one to know.
Right.
Just saying.
Well, I'm so grateful that you came today, and I know we went a little bit long. There was a lot of information that just felt like it all needed to come through, and I'm just so grateful, and we're going to have to definitely have you on again at some point soon.
It was so nice to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and if you're interested, she's available at Celestial Awakenings. You can find her there. She's in Portland and in Vancouver, and she does private sessions, and her partner and her do these group healings, which I'll be at in, what is that, January?
June 18th is
June
the next
18th.
one. It's
Stuck in
Sunday,
January for some reason.
the third Sunday of every month, at between 1 and 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So at the Celestial Awakening store on Southeast Portland, 79th and Stark.
Yeah, right across from the Academy Theater. Yeah, so that's always there. You can always attend that, and she offers classes at different points, and she's one to watch.
Yeah, just stay posted.
Yeah. And we post them in the group too.
Yeah, and if you want to become my friend, you can go ahead and just friend me on Facebook. I have my own personal page, Hannaneel Perez, and then also my healing practice, which is Turning Point Healing.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry we weren't able to read as much. It's so much harder up there and with two people, and you just get this much to read, and you have to like scroll.
And my eyes don't work.
I know
so
you're
good.
all like, I'm the old lady looking. Anyway, thank you guys for coming, and tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more and wrap all this up and do some more healing work, but play with that door and box.
Yeah,
play
totally.
with that and get to know your ancestors.
Absolutely.
Build your
will
trust.
not regret it. They will love you for it. They already do, actually.
Yeah, I'm just feeling this kind of opening space. It feels really good.
Yeah.
All right, so see you guys next time. See you tomorrow. Mwah.
Bye.
Love you all.